Right now, I want you to do something. Sometime in the next 10 seconds, raise your hand. Whenever you want. It's your choice. Completely free. Completely yours. Did you do it? Good. It felt like you decided, didn't it? A moment of wanting, and then the hand goes up. Except here's the unsettling part. If we had put your brain in a scanner, we could have seen that decision coming. Seconds before you felt like you chose, your brain had already started the process. The you that thinks it's in charge was the last to find out. That's not science fiction. That's one of the most disturbing findings in the history of neuroscience. And to understand it, we have to go back to a very strange experiment. Let's start in 1983 with a scientist named Benjamin Libet. Libet wanted to measure something that sounds impossible to measure, the exact moment a person decides to move. So he set up a simple test. He wired volunteers to a machine that recorded their brain's electrical activity. Then he gave them one instruction. Whenever you feel the urge, flick your wrist. No schedule, no signal. Just do it whenever you want and remember the exact moment you felt the decision happen. To track that moment, he had them watch a fast-moving dot on a special clock and note where the dot was the instant they felt the will to move. So now Libet had 3 things. The moment the wrist actually moved, the moment the person said they decided, and the brain activity leading up to both. Here's what should have happened. The decision comes first. Then the brain fires the signal to move. Then the wrist flicks. Decision, brain motion. That's what being in charge feels like. That's not what he found. The brain activity came first. A specific buildup of electricity, now called the readiness potential, appeared in the brain before the person reported deciding anything. Not by a little, by about half a second. Think about what that means. Half a second before you feel the urge to move, your brain is already preparing to move. The decision is underway before you know there's a decision to make. By the time the choice arrives in your awareness, the wheels are already turning. The feeling of deciding wasn't the cause. It was more like an announcement, a notification that something already in motion was about to happen. Now, when Libet published this, people argued. Half a second is short. Maybe the timing was off. Maybe the clock trick introduced errors. It was unsettling, but you could still squint at it and hold on to the feeling that you were in charge. And then the technology got better, a lot better. In 2008, a team led by John Dylan Haynes ran a modern version using a brain scanner, an fMRI machine that watches activity across the whole brain. This time, volunteers could freely choose between 2 buttons, left or right, whenever they wanted. The scientists just watched the brain and tried to predict the choice. They could, and not half a second early. The patterns in the brain revealed the decision up to 7 seconds before the person felt they'd chosen. 7 seconds. That's not a rounding error. That's enough time to watch someone's free choice form on a screen, lean over, and tell them which button they're about to press before they have any idea themselves. Sit with that. A machine reading your brain, knowing your decision a full 7 seconds before the thought, "I'll pick that one," ever shows up in your mind. So if your brain decides first, and the feeling of choosing arrives second, then what is that feeling exactly? What is the you that shows up late, takes the credit, and walks around all day convinced it's running the show? And here's the part nobody talks about. Your brain might be doing something sneakier than just deciding without you. It might be lying to you about it. There's a powerful idea in neuroscience that part of your brain works like a storyteller. Its job isn't to make decisions, it's to explain them after the fact and make them feel like they were yours all along. Some scientists call it the interpreter. We know this part exists because of patients whose brain hemispheres were surgically separated. In careful experiments, researchers could give one half of the brain an instruction the other half couldn't see, like get up and walk. The person would stand and start walking. And when asked why, they didn't say, "I don't know." They instantly made up a reason. "I'm getting a drink." The explaining part of the brain had no idea about the real cause. So it invented one smoothly, confidently, with no sense that it was guessing. That's the uncomfortable possibility, that a lot of what you call deciding is really your brain acting first, and then a storyteller inside your head spinning a reason a half second later, handing it to you and saying, "Here, this was your idea." You don't experience the gap. You never feel the delay. The story is seamless, which is exactly what makes it so convincing. So is that it? Is free will just an illusion, a trick of timing? Are you a passenger who thinks they're the driver? Not so fast, because this is where the scientists themselves start to argue and where it gets genuinely interesting. Critics point out that the early brain signal might not be a decision at all. It might just be the brain warming up, leaning toward action, building a kind of readiness that you can still veto. In fact, Libet himself believed in something he called free won't. The idea that even if the impulse begins without you, you still have a sliver of time to stop it. The decision might start in the dark, but the final say could still be yours. Others point out that these experiments use trivial choices. Flicking a wrist, pressing a random button. That's not the same as deciding to quit your job or forgive someone, or change your life. A snap reflex and a months-long deliberation may not run on the same machinery at all. The honest answer is that we don't know yet. The experiments are real. The 7 seconds are real. But what they mean, whether they erase free will or just complicated, is still one of the most fiercely debated questions in all of science. But even the modest version of this changes how you should see yourself, because at the very least, it means this. A huge amount of what you do every day was set in motion before you ever showed up to the moment. The reach for the phone, the word that jumps out in an argument, the craving, the flinch, the snap judgment about a stranger's face. Your brain ran the calculation in the dark and handed your awareness the result, already wrapped in the feeling that you chose it. You are not the little voice narrating your life. That voice is downstream. The real work happens somewhere you can't see, in a place that decided to raise your hand before you felt the urge to raise it. So go back to the beginning. That hand you lifted in the first 10 seconds. It felt like the purest little act of free will. A tiny, obvious proof that you're in control. But somewhere in your brain, before you felt a thing, the decision was already moving. The urge you felt wasn't the start of the choice. It was the echo of one already made. You raise your hand. You just might not have been the one who decided to.